Hey, I'm Sean O'Brien. We're here at my camp, the Orlando Wakeboard Academy. Alright, before you get on the water, you really want to focus on getting your stance set up and just kind of going over some of the basics. So now that you got your board and your bindings, you got to get it all set up, get everything put together, a nice comfortable stance. Basically what I like to do is stand on the board, figure out how wide you want your feet and how much of an angle you want them ducked out. There's some important things to note about stance. The wider you go, the more stable you're going to feel when you're on the water and absorbing landings. But if you end up going too wide with the bindings, you'll end up putting a little more strain on your knees. Downside to having your stance a little too narrow, though, is you won't feel as stable on the board. When you're figuring out the angle on your stance, you really want to make sure it's something comfortable so that you're able to bend your knees easily and just ride around and absorb those landings. I recommend just a slight angle. Normally, when you're riding, you've got a nice duck stance, your feet are out, you're able to absorb those landings. And if you end up having your stance straight on, when you go down, you won't feel very stable on those landings. You just can't ride around that well. And if you go pigeon-toed, you're really going to have a hard time. You're going to blow out your knees really quickly.
What should I sing about the first thing? Your stance?
Stance.
Okay.
Look at your stance, why it's so whack. What's up with that? You can't ride a boat through the water with your stance like that. I mean you could, but then you kinda look like a slalom skier trying to hit the buoys, but you don't want to stack like that. It's whack.
Something like that. But anyways, point is you don't want your stance like that because it's whack.
Okay, our favorite way to teach how to get up on a wakeboard is definitely behind the boat on our swim platform.
It is easier to remember than it is to forget.
But if you have an IO, an outboard, or another kind of boat, jet ski, you're not going to be able to use the platform. And definitely wouldn't want you near that engine. So you can learn on the ground here, as you can see Sean is. Basically, you want to stay in a ball just like you would on a swim platform. You're going to pull, you'll watch Sean's butt will slide to his heels, and then you're going to stand up away from the boat. So from this position, you're standing tall away from the boat, your back is straight, your knees are a little bent. You're going to pull to your front hip. For Sean, it's his left hip, so he's going to pull to his left hip, and the board is going to slide right around. Pulling in is always bad. Okay? Try to loosen up your legs. Again, like Sean said, you want pretty much balance on both feet. 50-50.
Rope length really depends on what boat you're riding behind. When we get riders up for the first time, we usually put them on a longer line, about 70 to 75 feet, just so we can get them up, get them out of the water, and they can learn how to ride around. But once we start getting people jumping, we kind of pull them in. We'll pull them into about 65 feet. That means you can slow them down and get a nice clean wake, and it'll be a lot easier for them.
Showing it up so I can clear this jump.
Easiest way for a rider to get up is when they're out in the water, you want to have your knees up to your chest, your arms straight out, and as the boat starts to go, you want to let the board drop underneath you so that you're basically sitting on it. As that happens, the board will start to rise out of the water, and you can slowly start to stand off as it planes. When you're driving a boat for somebody that's just learning how to get up, basically you want to start, you don't want to rip them out of the water. A lot of slalom skiers have a tendency just to gun it. The nice thing about a wakeboard is that it has so much surface area that you just need a nice progressive pull out of the water. So you can start by idling, and chances are most of the time people can get the board underneath them and they'll be able to get up relatively easy.
Easy on the throttle. You don't wanna yank them out of the water. Easy on the throttle, just barely move it.
Once you're up out of the water, it's important to have the correct body position. If you're not in the right position, chances are you're going to be very sore the next day. You stand up, you want to have your shoulders back, your arms straight out in front of you, lined up with your hips, and you want to be leaning against the pull of the boat.
This is the body position that you should be in. Relax, standing tall, knees a little bit bent, shoulders back.
But let's talk about that grip. You want your shoulders square, so you have your knuckles up. opposite knuckles. It's just like not right.
So once we're comfortable with riding around the lake and just kind of standing in one position, we can start messing around with edging. Basically, there's two cuts. There's toe side and heel side edge. For heel side, it's a lot easier. All you gotta do is you're gonna put a little more weight on your front foot, and you're gonna pull the handle, or try to have the handle more centered towards your body instead of at your front hip. When you do this, you can lean onto your heels and you'll start cutting out. Toe side's a little more awkward. The best way to do it is to think about trying to pull the handle behind you towards your lower back. At the same time, you want to take your front knee and kind of turn it back towards your back leg. When you do that, you're able to rotate your body and you're able to lean on your toes. So after we're comfortable with getting up and riding around and crossing the wakes and doing all that type of stuff, it's time to do some jumps. Easiest jump to start with is just the heel side wake jump, and for starting out, we're not going to take it too big. We'll just do little one wake jumps. What I want you guys to do is to get outside the wake, probably about between 5 and 10 feet. You're going to cut out, you're going to flatten off, and the board's going to kind of settle down into the water. At that point, you want to take that nice heel side edge, and you're going to cut back in, and as you hit the wake, all you want to do is just stand tall. You don't have to jump, you don't have to do anything. You just go from the position where your shoulders are back and you're leaning in to standing tall off the wake, and then it's going to get you all your pop. One thing that's really important though when you're cutting in is you want to have a progressive edge. This basically means that as you start, you're going to start your cut very, very slowly, and coming into the wake, you're going to lean more and more onto your heels. You want to make sure that you hold this edge all the way through the wake to get the most out of your cut. Downside to letting off your edge, besides losing all the pop that you generate from the line tension, is that you lose control once you're in midair. So definitely use a progressive edge, cut all the way through the wake, and stand tall.
So after you've started to clear the wake, the next thing to do is to start grabbing the board. When you're attempting to grab the board, you want to cut in and make sure you get the fundamentals of the wake jump all started before you attempt to grab the board. You want to pop straight up into the air, bring the board up towards your chest, and then reach down and grab the board, using either your front hand or your back hand. Probably one of the simplest ones to start with is the indie grab. The indie grab is backhand between your feet on the toe side of your board. Once you've mastered the wake jump and you've learnt to grab the board, the next thing you want to do is land backwards. We call that the 180. This 180 you want to learn is your toe side 180. Basically, this is a lot easier because you're coming in on your toe side edge, and naturally in the air when you pop up, the handle wants to come in front of your body, rotating the board to 180 degrees and then landing in the switch stance position. Once you've mastered the toe side 180, now you're ready to move on to the heel side 180. On a heel side 180, you still want to think about popping up into the air, and once you're in the air, bring the handle all the way in past your back hip as if you're going to stick it into the back pocket of your shorts, and then land with your chest over the toes of your board, edging away from the wake. So now we've gone through, checked out some of the basics of wakeboarding. Let's go and have some fun with the rest of the O'Brien team.
What is left to come?